Okay, dear guests, for those of you who are still in the room, thank you so much for staying. Now, although this is the last session, it is not the least. This session is MENA Watch, and it's discussing the future of cybersecurity in the region. Now, this session delves into the importance of cybersecurity as an essential safeguard for businesses, institutions, and individuals. So please give a very warm welcome to our moderator, Mr. Tom Higgins, founder and CEO at Gold Eye, and his dynamic panel.
Thank you very much indeed, and welcome all of you, the throngs of the audience that are here. And thank you. We have made it to the last panel and the last day of the show. So thank you, and all of you, of course, watching online. Thank you for watching too. So this is a really interesting area for me because I am always absolutely appalled how many companies in the world just don't take cybersecurity seriously at all, and then they get hacked, and then they wish they had. They also don't really talk about it when they do get hacked because it's too embarrassing. So you don't really think it's happening that much in this industry. As a tech provider in this industry, you obviously hear about it a lot. And it happens a great deal. So it is something you really should be very, very worried about. So we've got really interesting panel members here. So we've got two. Someone dropped out, unfortunately, but we've got Marta and we've got Naveen. And Marta is a poet, which is fantastic because I always like to explore a little bit more about what people do as a person rather than just their business. And I think that I love the idea of being a poet in this industry because poets, it's just so beautiful thing to do, isn't it? Thinking about things in that way. And then Naveen is a yoga instructor, which is a bit like physical poetry, I imagine. So you could probably do the two together. You could do some moving to poetry. And then we just need some music. Anyway, so if I could ask our panel members to introduce themselves and their companies, then we'll get stuck into this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Marta Etabala. I'm founder and CEO of CySuite, which is a cybersecurity consulting firm that also develops software now. It is based out here in Dubai. I am Spanish, so I came all the way from Spain, specifically Madrid, to this region, to the Middle East, with job opportunities, and I had the chance of working in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates before deciding and launch my own firm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Naveen.
Naveen Bharadwaj, Group CEO of Trescon. I've been in the region for the last 12 years, and prior to this, my home, India, south of India, Bangalore, which is considered to be the Silicon Valley of Asia. Trescon, as an organization, we do multiple things. Number one, our primary line is we run emerging technology events, predominantly B2B focused. World Blockchain Summit is a brand we own. World AI Show is our brand. DATE, which is Digital Acceleration and Transformation Expo, is our brand. Plus, we work with the government of Dubai. We run the Dubai FinTech Summit. We are launching the AI and Web3 Festival this September. We also launched the Future Sustainability Forum last year. So that's one line. The second line is we invest in emerging technology companies. We also own companies like Demandify. We've invested in a smart meter data management company, in an esports and gaming company. Currently, we are assessing and about to finalize investment into a credit and bill discounting company. And the third vertical is we have a foundation which is fully focused on social impact, so youth empowerment, women empowerment, doing our bits in bridging the digital divide across the rural areas of India. So I run a team of about 250 plus people with 7 offices around India, UAE, Mauritius, and a couple of other countries.
Well, that's very impressive. They say cybercrime doesn't pay, but it obviously pays quite well. So as service providers in this industry, it's both of you, it's really fascinating, the businesses that you've built up around this area. But the first area I wanted to go into is really the term cybersecurity is sort of bandied around, and everybody, so many people in the world think, well, I'll just get a good router and that's all I need to do, and then I'm fully protected. Maybe I'll need an antivirus on my PC and I don't need to worry about anything anymore. But from my experience, and I know from discussing with the panel, it's very, very wrong, that one. So first of all, I wanted to define what cybersecurity is. So if you could, maybe Naveen, you could start, is what is cybersecurity? What does it encompass? What are all areas it covers?
I'll do it in 2 parts, right? The first part, cybersecurity, is everything. Why? Because in our personal and professional lives today, the level of dependency we have on technology on devices, on internet connectivity, and the digital data or the digital space as a whole is simply phenomenal. Take Martha, for example. She's come from Spain. Now, she lives here, but while she came here from Spain, I won't be surprised if her visa, if her flight tickets, if her research about this place was all done online, right? Trading. How is trading happening today? Trading platforms, online. You be a healthcare institution, a government organization, a banking and financial organization, you be in defense space, education space, events, investments, no matter what, today you are dependent on technology and internet connectivity. This is at a professional front. At a personal front, again, social media, access to services online, mobile application. So to me, cybersecurity is everything. Now that's the more generic answer. But getting more precise is being aware of the type of risks you might be exposed to intentionally or unintentionally in the unseen cyberspace and taking actions proactively, not reactively, but proactively, is cybersecurity.
Thank you. Marta?
After this amazing explanation, I'm gonna take a summary then, because all of you may know the technical definition of cybersecurity, which is important also, which is all those methodologies and ways of protecting systems, networks, and devices, for instance. But taking it to a more day-to-day, like Naveen was doing, I would say that cybersecurity is everything we do on our daily life to protect our digital lives. And this has to do with the apps you were mentioning, the ways we do trading right now, which is through online platforms, how we connect to government services, all of that that depends on or relies on digital channels, and that we put on top as a layer of protection. And it could be from strengthening our passwords or using two-step authentication mechanisms or any other sort of tip and trick that you may know. That is cybersecurity.
So it's summarising that, it's all-encompassing, and to me it's a little bit sad that we have to do this, that we can't just go about our lives, because when I was at school, computers didn't exist. My youngest son thinks that I had a pet dinosaur, and I'm that old, but not quite that old. So you didn't have to do these sort of things because there weren't any threats. These things hadn't been invented, but there are an awful lot now, and I sort of break them down into computers. You've got to do things about computers. You've got to do things about networks, firewalls and things, but the most important part, by a long way, and if this is the only thing you did, you'd be more protected, is people. People are the gatekeeper to everything.
You know, it's the 2 or 3 I's as well, right? So it's your infrastructure, so that's your cyber digital IT infrastructure. It's your information pertaining to your businesses, pertaining to your individual self, and it's your identity as a business, again, as an individual. Because if you see, the digital risks currently are also on the rise. And typically when you say digital risks, the first thing that comes to anybody's mind is, oh, probably it's about an attack on my organization. But there are many attack vectors. There are many methods that are being used. Somebody can actually impersonate themselves to be the super awesome Tom. In reality, they might not be as awesome as you are, but they can impersonate to be yourself. They can have a profile in your name that you might not be familiar. One thing is social engineering, where they pretend they send communication to your team members, so on and so forth. But the other thing is they might just be existing via a social media profile that you're not aware of, and then they are doing their own ploys. So it goes beyond just the computers and networks today. It actually transcends to people. It transcends to the data. It transcends to pretty much everything that is getting processed out there in the digital space.
Just to add here, because it's true it gets to people, and just to your point, before we didn't have maybe this level of hyper-connectivity, but theft always existed, right? And security always existed. I think, and to your point, Naveen, what we're seeing now is that cybersecurity does not remain in the cyberspace anymore. It needs to be implemented also in the physical world. And because it has this impact in our lives, daily lives, physical lives, we have cyber attacks that impact physically the functioning of factories, for instance. This could impact eventually explosions, okay? And we don't have to get this dramatic or this belligerent, but the cyber world has an impact in the physical world. And this is very important, and to your point, Naveen, it's about people. It's about protecting people ultimately. And cyber warfare does not remain in the cyberspace. It has a presence in the physical world, and this is very important for everyone to know and for everyone to be aware.
We will be talking about this in a little while, but because you talked about the physical space, right? There are actually 3 different realms that we need to be looking at. Typically, when anybody says cybersecurity, the first thought that comes to our mind is IT security. But what we shouldn't fail to realize is the fact that today, it's not just IT, it's also OT, your operational technologies, right? Your SCADA networks, your telecom networks, your energy production units, your manufacturing units, plus the third one is your IoT networks, it's your Internet of Things network. So as businesses, not as individuals, but individuals as well, but as businesses, it becomes imperative to take a comprehensive, collective approach or view, and your cybersecurity should be seen from the lens of IT, IoT, and OT converging, and not just independently. If I am a manufacturing house today, I have the best of best systems protecting my IT infrastructure, but I can still get compromised. My business is not IT, my business is production. My business is manufacturing. And if I fail to actually protect those systems because I'm thinking those are not computers, but today they're also connected. And even if they're not connected, if there is an intranet, or if that can be accessed by one mean or the other, if there is a firmware or whatever else it is, they can be targeted. And it's not a conceptual thing, it's a reality. There are attacks happening. There are national level attacks happening. An entire country's power grid was brought down to its heels. Banks have been attacked. But to be more precise here, the FX space has been attacked numerous times, including in 2023. Some of the largest names, without getting into the actual brands, UK, I think between March to May, announced a massive attack, and they put up a social media post. So we can go on and on.
So we've now scared everybody terribly. So what can we do to fix this? Because this is a fixable problem. But as we've been discussing, it's not really you do this thing and it fixes it. It's a different mindset you need for everything. So when you plan a project, right from the beginning, if you're designing some app or some physical product or something, you've got to think right from the beginning, how am I going to make this thing secure? And you've got to think through all the ways that this could be exploited before you build the thing, rather than try and add it on afterwards. Because that's a lot of the problem with the older systems, is they didn't really do that. They tried to bolt on security afterwards, and then 2FA came along and they tried to put it in, but it didn't really fit. So question really to the panel here is, can technology solve all of this, or do we need something else, education or something to help people manage?
Yeah, I would say the first thing that companies that are not yet part of the cybersecurity aware culture would be knowledge and awareness, training.
Knowledge and awareness.
Knowledge and awareness to start with, because if you have that, you will understand eventually that you need to carry out a risk assessment of your company or of your product, implement, for instance, cybersecurity by design, which is what you were talking about, thinking that you have to, if you're creating a product, thinking that your product has to be cyber secure not only now, but in the future, right? So if you have the knowledge and the awareness beforehand, then it's much easier to just integrate it along the way, and it becomes part of your culture. So I think the goal in the years to come, and as companies become more digitally present, is that culturally, companies decide to deep dive or grow into this cybersecurity awareness that will prevent their businesses from getting disrupted and will allow them to be sustainable in time, from a financial point of view and from a business point of view.
First, let me answer your question. Is technology the solution, or is technology enough? No, definitely not. I always say that it's PPTI, it's the people process technology. As rudimentary as it sounds, sometimes basics are necessary. I would add to that innovation and awareness. Now, from a people standpoint, we've got to look at 3 different categories of people. Again, I'm speaking as a business, not as an individual. Number 1, my people, my employees, my suppliers, people that are engaged with me on a day-to-day basis. Or I would actually put suppliers in the third category, my employees. Number 2, my customers. Even if they're businesses, people from those businesses are interacting with me. So who are they? And thirdly, my suppliers, my partners, my affiliates, so on and so forth, who are also engaging with me. They are not my employees, they are not my customers, but they still have access to my organization at some capacity or the other. So awareness for these three different verticals or these three different categories of people is not going to be the same. Perhaps 50% of the education and awareness is the same, but the other 50% has to focus on their engagement with me, the nature of their engagement with me. Because I might face an insider threat, one of my employees might go rogue, and I might need to make them aware of the different security policies and the repercussions of going rogue. Whereas for my customer, I might have to make them aware of the fact that there might be a malicious fake application or a website. They got to be careful about the phishing emails they'll get, etc. And for my supplier, I might want to transfer the obligation of any potential theft or loss of my data through their lack of cybersecurity. So that awareness has to be different, but from a people standpoint.
So we're saying that technology doesn't remove the problem, but
Definitely
technology
not.
will definitely allow you to solve the problem in a better way.
Yep.
So one of the areas that I've got quite an interesting example is cyber awareness training. We've been doing it for years, and recently we deployed a new package to do that, which shows videos, and it's actually using it's called Know Before, and it uses actually stories, and it's almost like a really good TV serial, and people want to watch it. And actually, each month they beg me to put more episodes on because they really enjoy it. But we've really noticed a difference in the cyber awareness of the staff since we started doing this, because we do fake phishing emails, the system does it, and it targets them depending on who they are. As you're saying, Naveen's saying, you need to do different things for different people. It knows the level they are, it knows their managers, and it creates phishing emails. And we've noticed that the amount of clicks on phishing emails, the fake phishing emails, has gone down to almost nothing. And I think the last 2 months it was absolutely nothing. And so and this is purely from cyber awareness, is so important. And then you don't really need to worry about anything else because they're not clicking on things. So you've reduced your risk hugely straight away.
You've got to gamify that as well. Know Before does that. EC Council's Aware does that. Human Firewall does that. There are actually plenty of awareness tools out there which have taken a very different route instead of keeping awareness boring to PPTs or education and do plenty of tests. It's simulating those attacks. It's gamifying them, giving them scores, giving them leadership board rankings, so on and so forth, making awareness and learning fun as opposed to mundane. So that's in. But you can't do this, let's say, with your customers. You can't force your customers. How do you educate them?
Well, when we've worked with some banks, they've forced us to do their cybersecurity training, and I can assure you they did not make it fun. And you're absolutely right. Making it fun and engaging is so important because they listen. If it's boring, it's some really boring presentation that's just done in a dry way, you're going to switch off anyway. So I don't know, Marta, what's your view on this?
So I agree. There's a concept called gamification of cybersecurity awareness, which basically is transforming the awareness and the training into a game. We have escape rooms created. We have this
Escape rooms?
Yeah,
Gosh, fascinating. Tell me more about that.
So you have, if you know about escape rooms,
Yes.
you would have these sort of stories created for you and your team to solve a problem in the escape room, for you to be able to escape it. This is some format of this is online, some format of this is physical, and you have an instance in which you do this. But the goal is to build the team around cybersecurity in a fun way, right? So the same way we were discussing before, it could be a series, could be a escape room. Another point I think is very important, and working with different profiles of clients and companies across these years, I've realized that when awareness comes in as a checkbox in a list of compliance trainings that employees have to do, again, we go to the boring part of things. If we give them a training that is not only fun, but it solves their day-to-day problems, and so we make it more specific to the typical transactions they will carry out, so cybersecurity for your personal transactions, or cybersecurity for your kids, how to protect your kids online, for instance, the employees engage more. We had, for instance, to give you an example, a training for cybersecurity for the elderly, how to protect grandparents from scams that come from social engineering attacks, or how to teach them how to protect their profiles online so they don't fall for this type of cyber attacks. And employees were so engaged because this was connected to their personal lives. And so they saw the use of it from a family perspective. So when you connect with a person, I think it's much more efficient. And eventually we should go towards that to build this cyber-aware digital society.
Very interesting. If we now bring this to the FX broker world, how do we apply this to the FX broker world? There's a term used in cybersecurity called attack vectors, which sounds very exciting, but it's really all about where could you be attacked. It's just a fancy way of saying that. So, what are the attack vectors? The areas that an FX broker particularly needs to be worrying about?
Multiple areas, right? So I'll speak again from an individual FX broker and the company standpoint as well. First thing, this applies to all industries, including the FX. Distributed denial of service, where somebody hasn't necessarily gained access to your data. They haven't compromised you in the sense that your confidential information is out, no. But they have done enough damage by keeping all those who need to transact with your platforms, with your website, with your systems away.
So commonly known as a DDoS?
DDoS
right?
attacks, right? DDoS is still one of the number one attacks that's seen. Second is you see a lot of phishing. Again, phishing sounds rudimentary. Despite the awareness, you do see that phishing trumps as one of the top 3 common attack vectors where somebody is pretending to be somebody. Tom, Matan, I'm sure that all of us and our teams are getting emails on a daily basis saying, hey, this is Tom here, I'm speaking at a conference, I need you to do something for me urgently, please reply. 8 out of 10 times, our employees are inclined to reply to it. 4 out of 10 times, they're fearing that a lack of response or a lack of faster response might actually make you judge them. And 1 or 2 of the times, they might end up doing whatever that person who's the so-called pretending Tom or the talking Tom asking them to. That could be transfer of money, sending some information, etc. So phishing is one. Thirdly, ransomware and malware. Ransomware, again, regardless of the industry vertical, is one of the top 3 vectors where I have gained. So, all these are actually interlinked. And somebody might be plotting. It might be an orchestrated attack, which has taken it, they call it there's a beautiful term for this, where we've spent enough time studying your business. Through phishing and other means, we've collected sufficient data. Through DDoS, we've kept your customers and others at bay while we could actually be doing our own thing. And then now finally when we are in, so it's called the targeted attack, right? Finally, once we're in, let's say we deploy malwares. We deploy ransomwares. We start encrypting your data. We start cutting your access off your own precious applications, softwares, tools, or platforms, or whatever. And now you're being held ransom and demanded crazy money. And there's an unsaid rule in the cybersecurity space, which is in case of a ransomware attack, and if your files are encrypted, you pay, otherwise you won't get access. And after you pay, you pray because you may not get access. Once they're in, it's...
Pay and pray.
Yeah. So I would say those 3 are the top 3 attack vectors in my opinion.
Anything you can add to that, Marta?
Just focus on phishing and relate it to the social engineering attacks. Because we can think of some types of attacks, for instance, that are related to man-in-the-middle attacks or the provider fraud, as it's called. Maybe you know it. This is an attack that I've seen a lot in financial services institutions, which your provider, that is not your real provider, intercepts the communications with the provider, the real one, and starts these communications with you that comes to transacting with high sums of money. So they request you to transfer money or change the bank account in your systems because they have changed the IBAN number or the bank account or these type of things. And you may be keeping these communications for hours, for days. You end up transacting with these people and you end up losing your money because when you go to the bank and you say, hey, I didn't know this was a scam, you voluntarily made that transaction, right? So unless you have a specific type of insurance, you may end up losing this money and impacting your reputation eventually. So for FX, I would highlight the phishing side of things more than anything else. Through phishing, you also get ransomware, so we can summarize that one as well through phishing. But again, we keep talking about the same thing, but I believe, and I know it's the hot topic, which is awareness. How do you prevent most of ransomware attacks? How do you prevent most of phishing attacks? Through employee awareness.
So you can use technology there to educate people, to do the awareness so that you get fewer attacks because people are being more sensible. But you can also use technology, those few that do get through, a new employee who hasn't had any training, so they don't know any of this stuff yet, they're going to click on something, and what technology can use at that point to try and stop a virus spreading, to try and stop a ransomware, and to try and defend against an email that's pretending to be from me that isn't from me. I know there are things in place to do that, and I know you guys have those things. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Before I answer that, I will actually give you an answer as a yogi, right? Yoga is all about posture. And I feel businesses and the trading community should keep a consistent check on their cyber postures. And that does not happen just occasionally, like a New Year resolution. Happy New Year, Jan 1st, I'm going to come up with 10 different things and I'll forget about it for the next 365 days is not the right way to go about it. So checking your posture is a daily affair. People are your first thing. So we talked about process and technology. So building security by design. So it's like your house. You have a gate and a fence. You have a door. You have a lock. You have CCTV cameras. If they come in, perhaps you have sticks or guns. You pick up the car. You call police. Whatever it is. You apply multiple security measures, and your precious jewels and money, etc., is kept in safe lockers, and if somebody breaks it, there's an alarm that's triggered. You see, when you can apply those many different security layers in the physical world to protect your so-called precious assets, similar strategy must be, and it's of course currently widely also being adopted, be applied in the business world as well. So multiple layers of security. So one side you have intrusion detection, on the other side you have intrusion prevention. You mentioned earlier about antivirus and firewalls. That is so dinosaur age because that is now gone. We are talking about other things now. The sophistication of the attacks today is insane, right? Firewall providers are now calling themselves next-gen firewall. AV providers are these days calling themselves about endpoint protection. So there's so much that's happening. But simply put, you need to have certain basic security measures that protect, that detect, that respond, that mitigate. Simple stuff like SIM, security incident and event management tools, security data lakes, EDR, endpoint detection and response platforms, simulating attacks, not just phishing, real attacks on your system. There are breach and attack simulation platforms that can also not just simulate, but in case an attack went through, what would be the impact on your business? How do you launch these attacks on your employees, see what happens, and follow the path that the attacker might take, and then try to mitigate all those things. So I think there are so many different ways for you to stay protected, even if one of your employees ends up compromising you. But bear in mind, it's not just your employee that might compromise you. It's not the only route. There are thousands of other routes that they are taking. API. I'm running a trading platform. I am pushing and pulling data from 100 other sources, and I'm using API plugins. My people have been trained. Security awareness #1. My infrastructure is super protected, but I never thought of the risk that the third parties that I'm connecting with might actually bring to my business. API security, right? So again, the list can go long there.
I would like to add here, all of these tools may sound very expensive to any business, especially because cybersecurity is not a revenue generating type of thing in the business. It's actually a cost prevention if we want. So it's very hard sometimes to sell it to the board or to make business people understand this. I come from business myself, so I always try to bridge this gap. And when it comes to mitigating an attack or acting when it happens, it's very important to know what is the impact or what's the projected impact of this attack in the business from a financial impact point of view. And I think this is very useful, and it's not as explored or as solved yet, because cybersecurity tends to remain in the technical aspect of things. But as we were talking from the beginning, cybersecurity has become a pillar in the business if you want to have a robust digital strategy moving forward. So it's very important to quantify the risks, understand how much a cyber attack may cost to your business, and not only from a systems perspective or operations perspective, but also from a reputational point of view. Because a cyber attack for an FX trader platform or a financial services institution that in the end sell that trust to customers, so they put their money there, it's pivotal. So just as a key point from all these tools, from the technology side and translate to the business side of things, it is very important before thinking of the technology that you want to put in place to prevent or to mitigate an attack, to have this risk assessment and understand what would be the impact of a cyber attack in your business. And that will help you decide on what technologies to choose based on your budget and based on probability of incidents happening.
Yeah, and I could say we have hundreds of FX broker customers, so we see a lot. And we've had quite a number where their own infrastructure has been attacked. Some have gone bust because of that. Some have been out of business for weeks, and that is very difficult to recover from. It's incredibly serious, one thing going on there, so you really, really have to take this seriously. But one thing I'd like to say is it's very complicated. There are lots of buzzwords. And I don't think that many brokers, unless they're large brokers, will be able to do it on their own. So they really need to speak to experts like this, because there's things like DMARC and stuff that are magic words that we know what they mean. And when I first discovered about that, the ability to stop someone sending an email pretending it's from you is fantastic. But most people don't do it. So there are lots of things you can do to protect yourself. Awareness, number one, but talk to these guys to be able to help you, to advise you, or another cybersecurity expert in your area if they're not covering your area. It's really, really important. And the risk levels are just so incredibly high. But you can deal with it. Just doing nothing is not a good thing. I used to have on my whiteboard, hope is not a strategy, and I think that I really believe in that one. I just wanted to end up, because we've got 2 minutes left, so if you can think of any questions, if you've got any, but really, from either of you, just for a few seconds each, what's coming in the next 5 years in cybersecurity that we're not seeing now? What's going to hurt us, and what do we need to do about it? Marta, you go.
Okay, thanks. So I'm going to go to a fast word. Of course, anything AI is coming cybersecurity way, for the good and for the bad of it. Because, of course, cyber attackers, cyber criminals are also aware of AI, and AI works for everyone. So as we see more AI-generated attacks, we will see more and more companies and softwares that are based on AI technologies to combat those type of attacks. And then, on the other hand, I see strict regulation coming our way as well when it comes to cybersecurity in the usage of these type of technologies and in, for instance, protecting more certain parts of the population, like kids. I see a lot of regulation coming the cybersecurity way because more people and more companies are aware of the importance of it. And as we know, technology grows at a faster pace than regulations do, but regulations end up coming the way of technology eventually. So AI and regulation.
Thank you. Naveen.
So building on the AI part that Martha talked about, right? These technologies, emerging technologies, and you should go back and see what impact it has on you. Artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud, crypto, you're anyway part of that, data, esports and gaming, which is again picking up quite heavily, and a lot of gamers are traders and traders are gamers. I don't know how you guys find time, we barely find any, but fintech, metaverse, Internet of Things, quantum computing. You'll see that HSBC was testing last year on a possible effects that quantum computing might have on their FX platforms and how to mitigate that. All these are coming from a technology standpoint and a lot more, right? Because metaverse, digital twins, and other things, these are no longer buzzwords. These are realities that we are living with. So that's from a tech standpoint. From just generally a societal standpoint, I want to build upon what Martha said, which is more stricter, tighter regulations. Because the lines are blurring. The lines are blurring between personal and professional lives. Lines are blurring between the digital and physical space. The dependency on digital has not just increased, it's just catapulted to levels that we cannot even think of. So policies, frameworks, regulations, but most importantly, collaboration between the individuals, governments, organizations, associations, countries is also picking up. So you would see this trend, this upward trend moving forward. But as individuals, we should acknowledge the fact that, one, you cannot do it alone. You've got to work together, because this is, cybersecurity is not a business or one business problem. You mentioned earlier, companies or traders that might get attacked will never reveal because of shame, because of competition, because of other reasons, but that shouldn't be the priority. Protection of the industry, protection of the society, protection of civilization becomes a priority. So firstly, that part, collaboration. Secondly, you cannot, one size does not fit all. So the posture and the risk assessment that Martha was talking about is absolutely crucial, because you need to understand what is your exposure before you actually bring in solutions, because solutions are not the actual solution you're looking for. Because if I have fever and I take medicine that's a painkiller, I can't expect the temperature to go down. I need to first diagnose and understand what am I suffering with, or am I even suffering with something, right? Thirdly, most importantly, the landscape around you is constantly, consistently changing, which means you've got to think like those hackers. You've got to keep yourself abreast of what's happening out there, and again, see what impact it might have on you, so your strategies keep changing on a periodic basis.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. We have run out of time now, so thank you very much indeed for everyone attending, and thank you very much for a really interesting panel. If I could just leave you with, put 2FA on absolutely everything that you can, because that is so good at protecting you. No one, if it's got to come to your phone or some other device, it's going to help you. So do that if you haven't got it straight away. Do cyber awareness training, find and get into that, and talk to some experts about all of the other stuff. But if you do those first two first, you're going down the right direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you.